Welcome back to the P.S. Gilmore story and episode 66 of that story. We're still at the St. Louis Exposition, and this week we are concentrating on 1886. You'll ask why, and I'll explain just shortly. This is the St. Louis Exposition, as I said, in this part 3. This is part of the memorabilia that you'd have bought if you visited there during this exposition, particularly this year, because this year was going to be a huge event for St. Louis and indeed for the Freemasons of America. Because each year they have an annual conference, an annual event, an annual meeting, and it's called a conclave. And this conclave was basically going to take place in St. Louis, and local organizations from all over America called commanderies came to St. Louis with their members, and they talked about economics and agriculture and the politics of the situation and so on. And I'm very lucky to have this souvenir city guide, an official program from September the 21st, 1886. And it goes into marvelous detail in regards to the event, in regards to the city. It's also a help guide if you got lost where to go and so on. Because bear in mind, most folks weren't used to going to a big city like St. Louis or Chicago or New York or wherever. They came from much smaller localities, so this was indeed a new event. Here's an article in regards to the city guide. Over 100 pages are devoted to a sketch of the history of the Templars. Then follows a guide to the city of St. Louis, which are with cuts, then a batch of advertisements, and finally the official program of the conclave week. Now, as it happens, you'll see it wasn't a week at all. Here's the inside page. It's in immaculate condition, this particular program. September the 21st, 1886. But the event went on for much longer than a week, and central to the whole event was P.S. Gilmore himself and his wonderful band, Gilmore's band of the 22nd Regiment of New York. And the events itself were concentrated around the city of St. Louis, like illuminations at night, parades, and the like. Wonderful events for the period when, of course, for instance, there was no street lighting. But St. Louis was innovative enough to bring in street lighting for part of their city for the actual event itself, which must have been an absolute thrill for all who attended. The event, as I said, took place in 1886, and all of these organizations came from all over America, north, south, east, and west. For instance, from my collection here, I've got ribbons from Parsons, Kansas, from Rock Island, Illinois, from San Francisco, California, from Honolulu, from Paulo, Kansas. It must have been so exciting for these people to arrive and see the sights, and then obviously when they had time, visit the different exhibitions that took place in the St. Louis regular exposition. Here's a coloured official program, and this is even a big deal because in those days printing like this was done in a series of passes. You couldn't get printing done as we do today. Run it through the photocopier, it comes out multicolored. In those days, it was done one color at a time. Here's a medal from the conclave itself from St. Louis 1886 from my collection. The flag on the left there, Ascalon number 16. This was where the headquarters of the actual the Masons were for the conclave. And here is a program that you would have probably got from a local store, a throwaway we would call it. And it says here 46 days, continuous attractions at the cost of $500,000, $500,000. That's incredible today. Can you imagine what it was like back in those days when an average worker or whatever was getting $3 to $5 a week? Here's all of the days mentioned and so on. September the 22nd, in the middle of the page there, is very important. Grand Charity Jubilee on the fairgrounds. Immense gathering of Knights Templar, Widow, Gilmore's celebrated band, and so on. And there would be 3,000 musicians. Could it be possible? We'll have a look at that as well. This, as I said, has never been mentioned before. I've not found it in any historical book. I stumbled upon it myself, and I started researching it over the years, and now have built up quite a substantial file of detail about it. But it never ceases to amaze me how these people back in the 19th century were so very well organized without computers. Here's Gilmore's letter to the attendees and basically what they would do and what they would achieve, etc., etc. And he says in the middle, the object of the concert is to raise funds to assist in the building of a house for widows and orphans in the locality of St. Louis. And that was crucial. Here's that charity day, September the 22nd, from that program. And it further basically emphasizes that detail about the raising of the money. And again, why were they doing this? They were trying to take care of the widows and orphans, specifically from the Civil War. Here, by the way, is the Masonic home after it was built, and I believe they raised in the region of $35,000 for its construction. And I'm also told, in fact, if you do a search online, you will find the website still in existence. So the home is also in existence. So for the last 137 years, or roughly, it has provided great solace to these widows and orphans. It says here in the middle paragraph, they raised the generous sum of $35,000, and that was on actually September the 22nd, 1886, when the concert took place. Now, the concert, then that's the important part from Gilmore's perspective, because he organized it. He organized it, and he put together the concert program, and he arranged for 60,000 copies of the actual program to be made available to the musicians. A huge task in itself. 120,000 people were on the St. Louis Fairgrounds to witness this, it says. Now, the figure can be measured at somewhere between 40 and 120,000. To give you some quick facts, in the concert itself, 100 cornetists played the Gilmore's composition Columbia in unison. There were the Pilgrim Chorus was played by 150 trombones and various other horns. 60 bass drums were used, 200 snare drums. And as I said, the total number of musicians seems to vary between 2,000 and 3,000 musicians. So it was a huge event and one that should be remembered. Listen, thank you very much for your time, and I'll be back next week with more from probably St. Louis, because there is more to do.